Hi guys, and welcome to this overview and review of a new tool. Now, you may remember some time ago I reviewed a tool which was a ZBV spring bar tool. This is the one I keep on my bench. This is the simple single bar tool with the pin remover. I use this for all kinds of things. I have a small keyring version of that, and then of course the double one which lives in my drawer of tools down here for drilled lugs, and it's the one with the tweezer type action, which you may recall. Now this particular one interested me when Neil, who makes these, very nice fellow who makes them, when he contacted me and said, I'm making a new tool, would you like to have a look, would you be interested in reviewing it? And as soon as he told me what it was, I thought, yes I would, because I've got a couple of awkward watches. This is one of them, and I will explain why in a moment. As soon as I stop keeping you in suspense and get this unwrapped. Now, this little fellow here is the tool in question. And as you can see, it's a big hefting couple of blocks of aluminium with some cutouts. Very nicely machined, very nice polished ZBV stamp, as you can hopefully see if I catch the light there. And a couple of nice little knurled brass nuts with spring washers here, which clamp this bit, which as you can see slides up and down. At the end of it there is a hole, and that hole exists to fit one of these into it. And many of you, I'm sure, will recognise this as soon as you see it. This is just one as an example. And when you press the little button on the end, the jaws open up there. And this is a winding tool. These are really, really handy. I have a couple of these in my drawer. And these are really handy when you have to repeatedly wind and test watches. Now the problem with them, the risk with them, if you're not used to them, is that it's entirely reliant on you holding this in such a way that you're not putting pressure on the stem, which is easily done. Now these are great tools. They're very useful for the fact that they save awkward winding. And this particular watch is a skeleton watch with a standard Chinese movement, but quite a nice one. I bought this many, many years ago, and I really like this watch. It's a lovely watch. The one thing I've never liked about it is it has an onion crown. It really suits the style. It looks great on the case shape, but it's horrible to wind, especially when you get to the last few coils and it's really tight, because of the shape of the crown, it rolls down and there's just hardly any grip. And I'm not exactly sausage fingered at that. It's just really, really awkward. And that's where this tool comes in. And this here, as you'll see, slots very neatly through here. It has a little cutaway down here, which is where your crown sits. And this allows you to safely and accurately wind a crown without the risk of slipping, fumbling in your hand, moving the case or moving the winder, and the risk of snapping the crown off. Now depending on where the crown is, let's take for example this vintage 1950 Longines. Depending on where the crown is, if it's like this and buttered right the way up to the case, this is another great example as it happens, because this is a very, very thin crown. I don't know if it's the original one that would have been on this case. I'm suspecting not, because the size of it doesn't quite fit right. Whether it would have been a bigger one than this, whether it would have stood more proud, I don't know, because it is an automatic. So obviously once initially wound and worn on the wrist, you would be winding it very little. But to hand wind it, incredibly fiddly. There's nothing there to get a grip on. So this particular tool, of course, allows you to do that. And with this being buttered right up to the case, the risk is relatively minimal of slipping and snapping the crown. But some watches, if they're not buttered right the way up, or if you happen to be pulling the crown out to set the time and you're a little bit perhaps arthritic or what have you, something like this could save yourself a lot of hassle, and it can save your fingers, your grip, your frustration. And that's why I was so keen to try this one out. Once the tool is set with the crown central in here, you simply slide this through. This has virtually no lateral movement at all. You would open the jaws, clamp the crown in place like so, and then just keeping your thumb on here. Bear in mind you can also do this with a cloth underneath to protect your case back if it's a watch that you particularly want to be careful about winding. And then you just go ahead and wind, and it makes this action absolutely effortless. It's fantastic. And as I say, winding this particular one is a real chore for me. And it's actually one of the reasons I don't wear this as much as I really would like to, because a lot of the time I would take this out of the box and think, oh, I'll wear this one today, and I think I just, you know, can't be bothered winding because the crown is so fiddly and awkward. This is going to make a difference regarding that. This is also something that I will be able to use on other watches, especially any watch that I'm working on that isn't mine, that's a little awkward to wind. It will make things so much easier there, because I will now not have to run the risk of the possible slippage and snapping of a crown from the stem. As long as you are careful, you can, of course, use the winder without a tool like this, but there's always a possibility you could fumble it, you could slip, you could drop. It's not guaranteed that you will be able to keep that dead level all the time. Now, something else in theory you could do, which I'm just going to try, pop the crown out, grip it like so, and yeah, we can indeed, as you can hopefully see there, use that to turn the crown and set the time as well. So the noise you can hear there is the actual winding tool inside of this aluminium block, incidentally, just so that you're aware. But I like that. I like this a lot. I think it's really, really good. One thing that I have noticed, which I'll need to feed back to Neil regarding, is that he's sized this for the winding tools which he supplied me a couple of. And I'll state as well that Neil has very, very kindly supplied me this for testing purposes to display and to use myself, which I very happily will. But the comments that I make are my own, and I will reflect honestly my thoughts on it. One thing that I have noticed is that my winding tools that I have are slightly wider and won't slot into this tool. Now, these I've had for years and years, and I cannot remember where I originally got them. They're not branded, they're not a specific make, and I have, I think, 3 which cover most sizes with because they've got quite a wide jaw opening on these. I don't know if it's wider than that one. Yeah, probably a little. And unfortunately, these don't slot straight in, so that's a little bit of a shame. Let's try the other one. Yeah, likewise, it's only just too big. So obviously the ones I have don't fit. That's not to say any others that are round and about and in regular use won't fit. It's quite feasible that they will. And as far as I am aware, Neil, I believe, is also supplying the relevant sized winders along to order with the tool, I believe. I will pop a link down below in the description below to Neil's sales site, and feel free to message him, chat to him, ask him any questions. He's a thoroughly nice chap, very, very helpful, and I can say, based on the previous ZBV tool, the spring bar tool, that he machines very, very good quality tools. He's rounded all the edges off on this, so you're not going to slice yourself while you're using it or mar anything. It's beautifully full of fingerprints just now, but it's really beautifully milled and nice and smooth, and it's really nice. It's really nice all round. Good sturdy brass thumb screws. All the edges are nicely rounded off, so you're not going to stab yourself or cut yourself on it. And it's just very, very nice. I mean, there's not a huge amount more to say, but I'm just going to, now that I've wound that one up, and now that I've wound that one up, I might actually wear that one tomorrow. Today's watch, incidentally, is a relatively new recent favourite. It's a Seiko 7016A square dial, commonly referred to as the Monaco, which is a flyback chronograph with hour and minute counter in a single subdial at the bottom. Beautiful watch. But by the by, so I'm just going to slightly readjust this to fit this Longines, which I have just had a bit of a fettle with for someone. And we're going to give this one a wind, because I've been manually winding this one while it's been sitting bench testing for the last 2 or 3 days. And believe me, this is a fiddle and a half. This is probably the most awkward one, with the exception of a couple of ladies' ones that I have done in the past with such tiny crowns that I cannot possibly imagine how anybody ever wound them at all by hand. So the initial setting up is a little bit tricky, but you can put a little bit of friction on the brass thumb screws, and then it's just a matter of eyeballing the rough centre and nipping up the thumb screws. So it's relatively quick. It's a little bit fiddly, just kind of getting used to the sliding motion and what goes where. So let's see, would that one fit there? Yes. So same thing as before. Pop this through, open the jaws, get that there, and then with a thumb on the crystal, and look at that. That's fantastic. That really is fantastic. And I'm not just enthusing about this because I've been given it to test. I'm honestly really, really impressed with this. And I've got to say, when he actually explained what the tool was to me, when he contacted me first, sent me an email and explained it, and as soon as he explained what it was, I thought, I really want to try this. I really, really want to try this. So I was so excited when he said that he would send me one to do a review on. And I've got to say, that's just incredible. Because believe me, the last few days, this is the first time I've used this to make this a completely fair review. I've literally just taken this out of the box to try and use now. I have actually taken it out to have a look at when I first received it, which was a couple of weeks ago, but I've been very, very busy. And this is the first time I've actually used it. So for the past 3 days, I've been hand winding this thing. It is an automatic, as I say, but I've been hand winding it and just sitting it on the bench for testing, and it's been a chore. It's just trying to get a hold of that tiny, tiny little crown. I'll show you it's in close-up in a moment, but that is effortless. That's just so easy. It's incredible. I'm really, really pleased with it. I can think of several instances where that is most certainly going to make my life easier when winding watches, especially for testing. And I think the general idea behind this, behind Neil coming up with this, is that some people, as they're getting older, they may have a little bit of arthritis in the joints, in the fingers, in the wrists, that kind of thing. Makes hand winding a little bit awkward. Some people are reluctant to use hand winding watches if they've been used to automatics or quartz watches because of the daily winding. And of course, power reserves are getting longer and better now, which is great. But the other side of that is you still need to hand wind them, even if it's only every 3 days or what have you. And it's the kind of thing that could put someone off, as silly as it seems, bearing in mind that watches are a very personal taste, and people will buy or not buy a watch because of one tiny little things such as marking on the dial, or a colour, or something. So something like a crown, if they pick one up in a store and think, oh, that's really awkward to wind, it's the kind of thing that can make them go, no, I don't think I could be bothered winding that every day. Whereas something like this could open up the possibility of a nice new watch for the collection without the chore or the worry of having to do the daily hand winding, because you just pick it up, pop it on here, clamp it in, away you go, simple as that, pop it back out and onto your wrist. That's my little overview and review of the ZBV hand winder alignment jig. Any questions regarding it, send an email to Neil at ZBV, who makes these. Ask him any questions you like. As I say, he's a thoroughly nice chap, is very helpful, and he will assist you if necessary. And I believe, as I say, that he's going to be stocking a range of these winder tools, as well as the jig itself, to sell along with them. And the dimensions of that, while I'm here, so that you can actually check if you have these tools yourself, and just to give you a rough guide with the vernier calipers, is, where are we at? 9mm. Absolutely bang on 9mm, the diameter of that. And as I said, that fits nicely in there with very, very little lateral play, and it fits nicely in there and rotates very, very nicely and smoothly. These two slots, which bring the hole right the way down as low as this and right the way up as high as this, so this will accommodate a great variety of watch and case sizes. So anything from your huge, bulky, thick-cased automatic dive watch right down to most ladies' calibers, I would imagine, that are very, very thin. And even gents' dress calibers, some of which can be incredibly thin. And all in all, I'm really, really impressed with it. I think it's very nice. It's very nicely made, like his other tools, very nicely machined and finished. And I have no hesitation whatsoever in recommending this. This is the crown on this vintage 50s Longines. It's actually a 1950 watch, this one. Beautiful little thing, lovely movement. And as you can see, it's incredibly tiny, it's incredibly thin, and winding that by hand is incredibly hard. I can barely grip that. I can just about get a grip on that, and only because it kind of sits proud at the top there. And similarly, but for a different reason, is the onion crown on my skeleton watch here. As I say, this is a watch that I really like, but wear rarely because it's so difficult to get a grip on that crown because of the shape of it. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you in the next video. You just sat through the presentation of the winder jig, and this section right here is filmed probably about a week or so afterwards, because as I was editing the video just last night, something occurred to me, and that was that there is a degree of slipperiness of the watch back against the bare aluminium plate. So in order to try and improve that, I just did a little modification, and as you can see, that's working away nicely, winding quite nicely. And the modification in question, if I just release that and lift that away, you can see is a little sheet of something there. This little sheet is a piece of silicone rubber baking sheet. Now these are available really, really cheaply. I've used offcuts of one of these for all kinds of things. They're really, really handy for making little feet to glue onto things, to stop things sliding around your bench top and all kinds of things. They're great. They're really, really cheap. And the bonus is you can buy an extra one and bake muffins in them. And what more could you ask for? You can even get huge ones and bake cakes. It's just the best of both worlds. Now looking at this, this was a thin strip of the piece that forms the top, and this is a piece that forms one of the side of the muffin trays, and as you can see that's considerably thicker than this, hence the reason I wanted to use the top bit. Unfortunately at the moment this bit is quite small, so I will need to butcher another part of my spare muffin tray to make a slightly larger one, because as you can hopefully see when I place this on here, if I put that right up to the hole there, it's kind of in the middle. This has to come through slightly for the jaws to open, so if I clamp that onto the crown of the watch, trying to do this so you can see, ordinarily this would of course be flat, I can bring that back through like so and it's fine. But if the crown happened to be larger or you were using a smaller vise, then you could be off center a little bit. So ideally I could do with making that just a little bit wider than it currently is. As you can see, it's not quite halfway between the lugs. I can sort of push it right the way in there, and it's not bad. It covers the center of the back reasonably well. But if for any reason this happened to be out here, it is a little bit off center. But it does stop it from sliding around whilst you're trying to hold it down with your thumb. And that might be an interesting little modification to consider. This is just held on with a couple of dots of super glue. It can be removed easily at any time by simply peeling it off and wiping that down with acetone. And that will get rid of the super glue without damaging any of the components of the winding jig itself. So I just thought I'd add that little bit before I completely uploaded it. And as I just finished editing it last night, so I'm going to add this and then I can encode the whole thing and upload it for you. So hopefully that's a useful little addition. It does obviously add a little bit of thickness. You can get thinner sheets of silicone rubber. You could use a piece of chamois leather. You could possibly even use some rough masking tape or something similar. So just a couple of ideas there, but as I said, very happy with the tool itself, and just this little potential modification for you. So again, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.